Hey, what's up YouTube? Chris Seiter here, founder of Ex-Boyfriend Recovery, and today we're going to be talking about 5 signs that prove your ex is still in love with you. Of course, before we start talking about love, the first question you should always be asking yourself is, wait, do I even have a chance of getting my ex back? Is this even worth my time? Well, if that's you and you're wondering if you have a chance of getting your ex back, I've got great news for you. If you look below, in the description below this YouTube video, I've got a link there that links you up to a quiz I put together on my website. Now, this quiz is designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back, and it's going to ask you questions about you, your ex, and your relationship and your time together. Now, based on how you answer those questions, we're actually going to run it through our advanced algorithm and run it across all of the success stories that we've seen to give you an idea of what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. You're going to get a score and also personalized advice on how you should approach your situation going forward. So, if you want to figure out if this is even worth your time or worth exploring, simply look in the description link below the YouTube video, click on the link you see there, and we're going to get you taken care of. All right, let's begin by talking about love.
All right, this is going to be a fun one because today we're going to be talking about 5 signs that your ex still loves you. We're going to be basing all of these signs on real life success stories from people who've actually gotten their exes back, as well as a few success stories or stories from my own personal life to illustrate some of the points. Right, so I'm kind of excited to talk about this because I think there's a lot here that no one's really unpacked before. So let's just dive right in and start talking about what some of those specific signs that your ex still has feelings for you or still loves you are. The first sign I'd like you to keep an eye out for is they actually make an effort to keep the conversation going. Now, a lot of people don't look at it like this, but conversations have a specific trajectory to them, and it's different based on a lot of different factors. So, for example, one conversation may look like this. It's sort of like never gets off the ground. It's sort of not a great conversation. It's not very satisfying for you. It's not very a long conversation. And then other conversations can look like this, right? Where slowly but surely the conversation gets better and better and better. And then there's kind of a lull, and then you kind of hook their interest, or you hook each other's interest back, and it kind of goes back up, and then it kind of goes down. Now, the reason I'm showing you these 2 examples is I want to show you the parity between 2 different situations, right? How one conversation can go really poorly and another conversation can go really well. It depends on a lot of different factors, and I don't want to get into those factors right now, but what I want to get into is the commonality between these 2 conversations. Now, at a glance, you might look at these conversations and see, hey, they have nothing in common. One conversation went really poorly, the other conversation went really well. But the one thing that's undefeated and that connects these 2 conversations is time elapsed. Generally speaking, the more time that you spend talking to someone, the less satisfied they're going to grow. Why? That's not really a function of, hey, you're boring or you suck at conversations. It's a function of you start running out of things to talk about. Right? But what you'll find when someone has feelings for you is when there is a lull in the conversation, they'll actively try to keep the conversation going. They'll try to ask you questions to spark your interest again. I can't tell you how many times I've done this with my wife. I can't tell you how many times I've actually done or seen this done with coaching clients who have just tried to hold on to their ex. I can't tell you how many times I've seen exes do this with my own coaching clients. The interesting thing here is you have to understand this can only occur when there's a lull in the conversation, meaning the conversation is becoming less satisfying. That is when you start noticing your ex maybe coming in there and trying to ask you questions to spark the conversation satisfaction up again. So that's the first sign I would have you look out for. The second sign is that they can't help but touch you. And I'm not trying to be dirty or anything here, but what I'm talking about is those innocent little touches like hugs, little small touches of the arms, kind of sitting in close proximity to you or putting their arm around you, holding your hands, innocent things like that. It's just it's a weird thing to say, but we're kind of a slave of our own bodies, or more specifically, we're a slave of our own brains. When our brain wants something, sometimes unconsciously, we just reach out and try to grab it. right? And probably the best example I can think of this is actually something that happened to me when I was in high school. Uh, I was a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't get my first girlfriend or first real relationship until I was 18 years old, my senior year of high school, right? And I'll never forget, there was this weird sort of viral thing going around in our high school where if someone put a clothespin on you, like on your shirt or on your backpack or something, they would have to hug you. Yes, seriously, one of these clothespins, right? So I'll never forget the time that the girl who was going to eventually be my first girlfriend came up to me and literally put one of these on me without a word, without explaining anything, and just hugged me. Right. And so I'm literally sitting there thinking, wow, I can't believe she hugged me. Does this mean she likes me? Now, bear in mind, at that point, I've never been hugged like this in my life. Right. I've been hugged by my mom, family members and stuff, but nothing like this. Nothing romantic, and this is happening. So as you can imagine, I'm going through this roller coaster of emotions. Now, I later find out that she did that on purpose, that she actually was looking for an excuse to hug me because she had feelings for me, that she liked me. So here's the moral of the story. If your ex is actively going out of their way to touch you in some way, not sexually, but kind of sweetly, it can be a very good sign. All right, the third sign I want you to keep an eye out for is that they actually respond to your messages promptly. When I met my wife for the first time, I was in Texas and she was in Pennsylvania, right? So we had to communicate mostly through text messages and phone calls. We were already kind of in a long-distance relationship situation without actually being into a relationship. We just had met each other. We're trying to learn like what each other likes, what each other dislikes, and things like that. And so one thing I knew is every time I would get a text message from her, I would get giddy and I'd respond immediately. And I would think to myself, I need to not look too available. I need to wait to respond to her. And so she would send a text message to me and I'd stare at it and I'd say, I'm going to wait 45 minutes. And then 5 minutes would go by and I couldn't just, I couldn't do it. I had to respond to her. I physically could not stop myself from responding to her. Now, maybe that's not good from a perspective of attracting someone because there is an element of playing hard to get that can work. But in this particular case, when we're looking at it from my feelings, I was falling for her even before I even had a chance to meet her in person, which I'm going to tell you a really funny story about that a little bit later. Here's my point, though. If your ex is promptly responding to you, it is a good sign. All right, sign number 4 is actually proximity, and I'm talking about proximity both physically and electronically, but also I think every element of that word. Scientists have found that the closer in proximity that someone is to you, the more likely they are to fall for you, right? So in my opinion, there's 3 big portions when it comes to proximity. You've got physical closeness, you've got general closeness, and electronic closeness. Now, what are these 3 things? Well, physical closeness is someone physically being close to you. So the closer they are to you, the more likely they are to have feelings for you. It makes sense, right? Some guy, if you're a girl, or some girl, if you're a guy, being real close, almost to the point of hugging you, there's some type of feelings there, right? But this also can work with general closeness. The scientists, when they actually did studies, they found that when people were working together for a long time, it creates more opportunities for the 2 people to fall in love. And I think a lot of this has to do with my theory on investment and how investment of time is such an important thing. And if you're spending more time with your work colleagues than maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend, you're going to have an opportunity to fall out of love potentially with your girlfriend or boyfriend and fall more in love with the people who you're spending more of your time with. It's kind of weird, but there's a little bit of a common sense element to it, but it also kind of rings true. And then, of course, you have electronic closeness, and I think this is something a lot of people don't talk about, but that's actually being near someone on social media. That's when you sort of look at their pictures, for example, and like their pictures or comment with some sort of text or something through social media. Even kind of Facebook stalking is a form of electronic closeness. So the closer in proximity your ex is to you in these ways, the more likely it is that they're falling in love with you. Now, sign number 5 is where I'm going to tell you probably the funniest story I've told, I think, on this YouTube channel ever. And that's sign number 5 is willing to try things that you like. So if your ex is willing to try things that you like, that they don't like, it's a good sign. Now, I mentioned earlier that I am from Texas and my wife originally was from Pennsylvania. So we actually met around 2 months into talking to each other. And we met at kind of a neutral ground in Florida. Her parents had a house in Daytona Beach, Florida. She was going there and she said, "Hey, do you want to come and hang out?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come and hang out with you." So that was the first time that I met her, right? And I'm very, very nervous at this point, to the point where I'm literally shaking in the plane ride over, trying to think like, how is this going to go? This could be a disaster. Now, before I continue the story, I want to tell you and give you some context. My wife eats healthy. I do not, meaning she eats things like salads. I eat things like meat, right? And I mean, meat can be healthy, assuming there's certain types of meat, but I promise you I do not eat the healthy kind of meat. Anyways, I don't like salads. I despise salads. And I'm not saying that to hurt anyone's feelings or point out that salads suck, which they do. I'm actually telling you that to give you context for this story. Anyways, upon meeting her for the first time, she actually was willing to cook for me. She said, "Hey, would you like me to cook for you?" And I, of course, being the Texan that I am, sit there and think, "Awesome, this is going to be steak." But out comes a salad. She cooked a salad for me. Now, I'm in this precarious position where I can't really say, "No, I don't want a salad," because I'm just meeting this girl for the first time. We're trying to explore things. I don't want to hurt her feelings. And so I decide to eat this salad. So I'm eating the salad, and I get maybe halfway through, and I've never really understood what a gag reflex was in my life. I always saw the funny memes and things people would put online about, like eating something or just gagging when they're disgusted by something. And about midway through eating this, I literally start gagging. I mean, literally, I start gagging. And it's funny because it's just a salad, right? And I don't even know what I gagged on. There was something in there that just didn't agree with me, but I have to hold it in. I can't show her that it's disgusting to me, right? And so after the gagging thing, I eat a few more bites, and I'm kind of doing that, this is good, when I'm really thinking this is disgusting in my head. So I stop, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you liked it. It's my favorite salad, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm kind of in this precarious position where I can't tell her that I hated the salad and I didn't hardly eat any of it and I'm starving, because then she'll know she did this nice thing for me. I don't want her to know that, I hated the salad, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, right? So I went to bed hungry that first night I met her. And then after that, I think her dad or something cooked some steaks up the next day. So I did eventually get fed. But I wanted to tell you that story because I think it really highlights the fact that, hey, when someone is falling in love with you, they're willing to try things that you like that they don't like. They're willing to put your well-being ahead of their well-being. And that's an interesting distinction that I think a lot of people don't give a lot of credit to, especially when you're looking at their exes for specific signs that they're falling back in love with you.